Hey guys, tonight we are going on a journey. But it's not to a grand battlefield or a glittering royal court. Not at first anyway. Tonight, you are not a king, a queen, or a conqueror. You are a small village on the verge of a decision that will irrevocably alter not just your future, but the very essence of your being. Let's be honest. Given the circumstances we're about to explore, most of us probably wouldn't survive the first day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps the channel find other people who appreciate these quiet, late-night explorations of the past. Let me know in the comments what city you're listening from, and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you're truly aware of is the cold. Not the sharp, biting cold of a winter blizzard, but the deep, gnawing cold that lies in the walls of your home and in the pit of your stomach. It's the cold of hunger. Your blanket is thin, a patchwork of rags that does little to keep the draft from sneaking through the cracks in the mud brick walls. You can hear the wind whistling a low, mournful tune outside. Supper, like most nights, was a thin, watery gruel, barely enough to quiet the protests of your belly. You have brothers and sisters, a tumble of sleeping shapes huddled together for warmth on the other side of the single room. But tonight, you are separate. You're awake, sitting on a small stool while your parents speak in low, urgent whispers near the dying embers of the fire. You don't understand all the words, but you understand the feeling. It's the same heavy silence that followed the failed harvest, the same despair that clung to your father's shoulders when the tax collector left, taking the last of your grain. But this is different. This time, their eyes keep flicking towards you. Your mother's face is slick with tears she doesn't wipe away, her hands twisting a loose thread on her tunic. Your father's face is a mask of grim determination, but you see the tremble in his jaw. He is trying to be strong, but his strength is cracking. He kneels before you, his rough, calloused hands resting on your small shoulders. His voice is hoarse when he speaks. He talks about the capital city, a place of impossible size and wealth, with walls so high they touch the clouds. He tells you about the emperor, a man more powerful than a god who lives in a palace made of gold and jade. And in that palace, he says, there are men who serve the emperor directly. They wear silk robes, eat their fill every day, and never have to worry about the cold again. They are honored. They are powerful. And, he says, they can send money home. Enough money to ensure your brothers and sisters will never know this gnawing hunger, enough to fix the roof, enough to give your parents a comfortable old age. This is the central, brutal truth of your situation, a mainstream historical fact that is often glossed over. For countless families, particularly in Ming and Qing dynasty China, this was not a punishment or religious rite. It was a career move born of utter destitution. It was a choice without a choice. When the alternative is watching your entire family starve, the unthinkable begins to look like a viable path. It becomes a desperate gamble, a sacrifice of one son for the survival of the many. Your father is trying to frame it as an opportunity, a noble act. And here we touch on a strange, almost unbelievable little piece of history for some. This was considered a twisted form of filial piety. The ultimate duty of a son was to care for his parents. If becoming a eunuch and gaining wealth and influence was the only way to fulfill that duty, then the act itself, in a grim sort of logic, could be seen as honorable. A son who brought riches and glory to his family, no matter the cost to himself, was a good son. You are too young to grasp this complex justification. You just see the pain in your mother's eyes and the forced hope in your father's. You are being offered up as a living sacrifice on the altar of family survival. And so, we arrive at a question that historians still debate. In these quiet, desperate moments, what was the true emotional landscape? Was it a cold, calculated transaction, a family selling a child into a strange and uncertain servitude? Or was it a moment of profound, shattering grief, a heartbreaking decision made because there were simply no other options left? We can see records of the transactions, the money that exchanged hands, but we can't measure the weight of the tears shed in the dark. Looking at your parents, you see both. You see your father's grim calculation and your mother's silent, breaking heart. The decision hangs in the air, thick and suffocating. There is no shouting, no argument. There is only the quiet finality of ruin. Your father finally looks away, staring into the embers. It is decided, he says, to the fire, to the room, to the universe. Tomorrow, the man will come. Tomorrow arrives, not with a bang, but with a heavy, oppressive quiet. The sun rises, casting weak, gray light into your home, but it brings no warmth. Your parents don't speak. Your mother moves like a ghost, her face pale and puffy. Your father sits by the door, watching the path. He doesn't eat. You don't eat. The other children are ushered outside, told to play far away, and not to return until they are called. They go confused but obedient, their laughter fading into the distance, leaving behind a silence that is louder than any noise. You just sit on your stool, your hands clasped in your lap, waiting for a future you cannot comprehend. And then he arrives. He is not a villain from a scary story. He is an ordinary-looking man, middle-aged, with a calm, almost placid expression. His clothes are clean but well-worn. He carries a small, unassuming bundle wrapped in dark blue cloth. He bows slightly to your father, a gesture of professional courtesy, and steps inside. The air in the room instantly changes. It becomes thick, charged with unspoken meaning. This is the man. This introduces a core historical truth about this process. The men who performed these operations were not doctors or court physicians. They were specialists, often from families that had held this grim monopoly for generations. In China, they were known as Da Zai Zhang or knife artisans. Their knowledge washed from medical texts. It was a craft passed down from father to son, shrouded in ritual and secrecy. They were masters of a single, devastating skill. They existed on the absolute fringes of society, performing a service that was both essential for the imperial system and deeply taboo. The man doesn't speak to you. He speaks only to your father in low, measured tones. He opens his bundle on the small wooden table, and you can't help but look. There are no terrifying, jagged instruments. Instead, you see a collection of small, curved knives, honed to a razor's edge, gleaming even in the dim light. There are also bindings, jars of what looks like ash, and a stack of soft paper. Everything is neat, orderly, and terrifyingly purposeful. Your father pushes a small cloth bag across the table. The fee, the sound of the coins clinking, is the only sharp noise in the room. And now for a truly strange and chilling piece of this puzzle, the paperwork. Before the specialist does anything else, he produces a sheet of paper. It's a contract. Your father, who cannot read, listens as the man recites the terms. It's a waiver, a formal declaration that this act is being done willingly by the family, and that if you should die from the procedure, from blood loss, from shock, from the inevitable infection, the specialist will be held blameless. It is, for all intents and purposes, your life's warranty, and it has just expired. Your father presses his ink-stained thumb onto the paper. It is a signature of hope and a signature of surrender all at once. This document, or one like it, was a common feature of the process, a grim bureaucratic acknowledgement of the incredibly high mortality rate. The very existence of this specialist raises a question that historians still puzzle over. What was the true social standing of a man like this? He held the power of life and death, and his skills provided a gateway to immense power for others. Did his high fees and essential function grant him a strange, fearful respect? Or was he utterly reviled, seen as a ghoul who profited from the mutilation of children? The answer is likely somewhere in the murky middle. A man you sought out in the depths of desperation and then likely tried to forget ever existed. He was a creature of the social shadowlands, both indispensable and untouchable. He now turns his attention to you. He gestures for you to come closer. His examination is brief and clinical. He checks your health with the detached air of a farmer inspecting livestock. There is no cruelty either. It is the touch of a man about to perform a job. Your mother lets out a small, choked sob, and he glances at her, his expression unchanging. He says something to your father, who nods and then looks at you. "It is time," your father says, his voice cracking. "Be brave. This is for the family." He won't meet your eyes. Two worlds are about to collide in this tiny, cold room. The immense, abstract power of the far-off palace and the sharp, immediate reality of the knife. The specialist picks up the first of his tools. He looks at you, not with malice, but with the dispassionate gaze of a craftsman about to begin his work. The moments that follow feel stretched and surreal, as if you're moving through water. The knife artisan works with a practiced, unhurried efficiency that is almost more terrifying than haste. He has your father hold you, not in an embrace of comfort, but in a firm, unyielding grip. The man's instructions are soft and clear, a series of commands that drain all the remaining warmth from the room. You are told to drink a hot liquid, a spicy, numbing tea that makes your tongue feel thick and your head swim. It's not an anesthetic, not in any modern sense. It's a crude concoction of herbs, perhaps meant to dull the senses or, more likely, to serve as a ritualistic part of the process. Your father's hands are shaking, but his grip is like iron. Your mother has turned away, her shoulders trembling, a low, keening sound escaping her lips. You are laid down on a low bench, the wood hardened cold against your back. The specialist begins to bind your upper abdomen and thighs with long strips of cloth. He wraps them tightly, a technique passed down through generations. This is a crucial, if brutal, part of the historical procedure. The bindings were intended to restrict blood flow to the area, a primitive form of tourniquet designed to minimize the catastrophic hemorrhaging that was the most common cause of immediate death. It was folk medicine at its most desperate and dangerous. The room is filled with a strange, medicinal smell. The man is burning a mixture of herbs and powders, filling the air with a thick, acrid smoke. This was just for show. Historians believe this was a primitive attempt at sanitation, an effort to use smoke to purify the air in the surgical field. It was, of course, woefully inadequate, but it speaks to a certain awareness of invisible dangers, a ghost of the concept of infection. He also applies a paste of hot chili sauce to the area. Burning sensation is a shocking distraction, a fire on your skin that is meant to overwhelm your senses and perhaps act as a crude local anesthetic through sheer sensory overload. Now for a detail that is both small and deeply symbolic. The specialist takes a small, preserved object from his kit. In some traditions, it was a shriveled quail leg, in others a piece of dried pig's offal. He has you hold it in your mouth. The instruction is simple: do not swallow it. This object served multiple purposes. It was a distraction, something to focus on. It was a gag to muffle the inevitable screams, but most importantly, it was a failsafe. If you fainted from the pain or the shock, your jaw would relax. You would swallow the object, and you could choke. It was a brutal way to gauge if you were still conscious. The success of the operation, in the artisan's eyes, depended on you remaining awake. The ritualistic nature of these preparations is something that historians still debate. Was this all a calculated series of pseudo-medical steps, the best they could do with the knowledge they had? Or was it more of a performance, a set of rituals designed to psychologically fortify the boy, his family, and even the artisan himself for the horrific act they were about to commit? Perhaps the ceremony was a way to convince everyone involved that this was not a simple act of butchery, but a profound, almost sacred transformation. The line between primitive medicine and magical thinking was incredibly thin. The burning herbs, the bindings, the object in your mouth. They were all part of a script, a terrible play that had to be performed just so. Your head is foggy from the tea, your skin burns from the chili paste, and the bindings are so tight you can barely breathe. You look past your father's grim face to the smoke-filled ceiling. You can hear your mother's muffled sobs. The knife artisan has finished his preparations. He picks up his primary tool, the small, crescent-shaped blade. It looks deceptively simple, almost elegant. He holds it up for a moment, letting it catch the dim light from the single window. He murmurs a short, guttural phrase, not to you or your parents, but to the knife itself, or perhaps to the spirits he believed governed his dangerous work. The air is thick with the smell of smoke, herbs, and fear. Your father script items a silent, final apology. The world narrows to the glint of steel and the calm, focused eyes of the man who is about to unmake you. There is no way to soften this. The moment the blade touches your skin is a supernova of pain. It's an agony so absolute, so all-consuming, that your mind shatters into a million white-hot fragments. The numbing tea, the burning paste, the psychological preparation, they are all instantly incinerated by the reality of the cold steel. A scream is torn from your throat, muffled by the object in your mouth, but it's a sound of pure, animalistic terror, fighting against your father's desperate, iron grip. He holds you down, his own face a mask of agony, tears streaming down his cheeks and mingling with his sweat. He is both your tormentor and your last human connection in a universe of pain. The knife artisan is swift. He does not hesitate. His movements are precise, economical, born of 1,000 repetitions. This is the core of his craft, speed. The longer the procedure takes, the greater the chance of you dying from shock or bleeding out on this crude wooden bench. He works with a detached focus, his face unreadable. He is not a sadist, he is a technician performing a delicate and dangerous task. This clinical detachment is a key historical element for the artisan. This was a job. Emotional involvement would be a liability. His success was measured not in empathy, but in your survival. In a matter of seconds, it's over. The source of the most intense pain is gone, but it's replaced by a new, horrifying sensation, a searing, hollow emptiness. The artisan immediately packs the wound with a thick layer of paper ash. This was the primary method of cauterization in staunching the bleeding. The ash, often soaked in oil, was meant to absorb blood from a crude seal over the wound, and they hoped prevent infection through its alkaline properties. It was a terribly ungy gift in a practice by modern standards, and a major contributor to post-operative infections, but it was the best tool they had in their grim arsenal. Now for a truly bizarre, and frankly, stomach-churning detail of the process. The parts that were removed are not discarded. They are carefully preserved. They are pickled in brine or dried and placed in a special container, often a lead-lined box or a small earthen jar. This was known as the bow or treasure. This treasure would become one of your most important possessions for the rest of your life. It was your proof of identity, the physical evidence that you were a legitimate palace eunuch. You would need it to get promotions, and, most importantly, you would need it to be buried as a whole man upon your death, a concept of immense spiritual importance. The idea that your completeness in the afterlife depended on being reunited with these severed parts of yourself is a profound insight into the psychological and spiritual trauma of the experience. The artisan then inserts a quill, often a goose feather or a small bamboo peg, into your urethra. This was to prevent the passage from closing up as it healed, which would lead to a slow, agonizing death from being unable to urinate. This small, seemingly insignificant object is now your lifeline. The pain of its insertion is a sharp, cruel counterpoint to the larger, throbbing agony of the wound. You are now a vessel of pain, every part of your body screaming. You are shivering uncontrollably, a combination of shock, blood loss, and abject terror. Historians are still trying to fully understand the mortality rates of this procedure. There are no neat, official statistics. The practice was often secretive, and the deaths of poor boys in remote villages went unrecorded. But based on anecdotal accounts and the records of those who failed to enter palace service, estimates are grim. Some scholars suggest the mortality rate could have been as high as 20 or 30%, or even higher, depending on the skill of the artisan and the constitution of the boy. The question remains, how many boys never even made it to the next stage? How many stories ended right here, in a pool of blood and dash on a dirt floor? We see the survivors in the historical record, the ones who went on to fame or infamy. We don't see the ghosts, although he is now weeping openly, his attempts at stoicism shattered. The knife artisan cleans his tools, his work done. For him, this is the end of the transaction. For you, it is the beginning of a new, terrifying ordeal. You have survived the knife. Now you must survive the healing. The world shrinks to the size of a small, dark room. The knife artisan is gone, taking his fee and leaving behind an oppressive silence broken only by your own ragged breaths. You are moved from the hard bench to a pallet of straw in a secluded corner of your home, or sometimes to a special, isolated hut that the artisan maintained for this very purpose. This period of recovery, traditionally lasting around 100 days, is a trial by fire. You are not allowed to eat, you are barely allowed to eat, and given almost nothing to drink. This forced dehydration is a key part of the traditional healing process. The logic, as brutal as it sounds, was to limit the need to urinate. The first time you successfully pass water after the operation is the single most important milestone. It means the quill has done its job and the urinary tract has not sealed shut. But for the first 3 days, you are often forbidden from drinking any liquid at all. Your thirst becomes a torment, a dry, rasping agony that compounds the throbbing pain of the wound. Your lips crack, your tongue feels like a piece of dry leather, and a constant, low-grade fever begins to smolder within you. Your world is a landscape of pain and sensation. The sharp, stinging pain of the wound itself. The deep, aching pain in your lower back and abdomen. The maddening itch as the skin begins to heal under its crude dressing of ashen paper. You are constantly monitored. The artisan or his apprentice might check on you, their inspections quick and impersonal. Their only concern is whether you will live or die, whether their investment of time and effort will pay off. Your family is kept at a distance. Their face is a mixture of pity, fear, and a strange, guilty hope. They are rooting for you to survive the ordeal they have put you through. This brings us to a peculiar, and rather poignant, cold fact of this recovery period, the enforced solitude. You are often kept away from others, partly for hygienic reasons, but also because of the shame and secrecy surrounding the procedure. You lie in the dark, listening to the muffled sounds of the world outside, children playing, a dog barking, your mother's voice. These ordinary sounds now seem to come from another planet, a world you no longer belong to, and the fever. This isolation was a crucial part of the psychological severing. You were being separated not just from a part of your body, but from your old life, your old identity. The third day is the moment of truth. You are finally given water, or perhaps a thin broth. You are forced to drink, and then everyone waits. The pressure builds in your bladder, a new kind of pain, sharp and urgent. It is a moment of supreme terror. The quill is removed, an act that sends a fresh jolt of agony through your already ravaged body. You are told to urinate. If you can, it is a cause for cautious celebration. A gush of liquid, likely mixed with blood, is a sign of success. The artisan has done his job well. If you cannot, if the passage has already swollen or sealed shut, it is a death sentence. There is no second chance, no further medical intervention. You would simply succumb to uremic poisoning over the next few days, a slow and agonizing end. But you do. The relief is immediate and overwhelming, quickly followed by a wave of exhaustion that pulls you down into a shallow, feverish sleep. You have passed the first great test. But the danger is far from over. The risk of infection is now at its peak. The wound is a gateway for every imaginable bacteria. The fever that has been simmering within you can easily flare into a full-blown, life-threatening crisis. Many boys who survived the initial operation and the 3-day water trial would die in the following weeks from tetanus, gangrene, or sepsis. Historians still debate the exact role of the various folk remedies applied during this time. Were the herbal poultices and strange salves completely useless, or did some of them contain compounds with genuine, if mild, antibiotic or antiseptic properties? It's a question modern science can't definitively answer, as the exact recipes were often closely guarded secrets. For you, it's a matter of sheer luck. Your immune system is locked in a desperate, silent war. For weeks, you drift in undoubt of a painful haze. Days blur into nights. You are slowly allowed more food and water. You are taught how to care for the wound, how to keep it clean in the most rudimentary fashion. You learn the new, awkward posture you must adopt for the rest of your life simply to manage basic bodily functions. The physical healing is slow, but the psychological healing is not even begun. You are a child who has been put through a trauma that would break most adults, but the boy who existed before the artisan's arrival is gone forever. In his place is someone new, someone quieter and much, much older. The 100 days of silence are ending. Soon, it will be time to leave. The day you leave your village is quiet and unceremonious. There is no grand farewell. Your body has mostly healed, though it is a fragile, scarred new version of itself. You are thin and pale from the long confinement. You walk with a strange, careful gait that you are still getting used to. Your parents give you a small bundle with a change of clothes. Another presses a small, lucky charm into your hand, her own hand trembling as she does so. Her eyes are full of things she cannot say. Your father claps you on the shoulder, a gesture that feels awkward and distant. He tells you to be smart, to work hard, and to remember your family. Then you turn and walk away, following the man who will be your guide and broker to the capital. You don't look back. The journey to the capital is a blur of dusty roads, crowded inns, and unfamiliar landscapes. It's the biggest journey of your life, but you feel strangely detached from it all, as if you're watching it happen to someone else. You are now officially a commodity, a piece of human inventory being delivered to its buyer. Your guide is not unkind, but he is all business. You are his investment. You are his investment, and he intends to see a return. And then, one day you see it. At first, it's just a dark line on the horizon. But, as you get closer, it resolves into the walls of the city. They are impossibly massive. A great stone dragon encircling a world you can't even imagine. The sheer scale of it is meant to inspire awe and intimidation, a physical manifestation of imperial power. This is a core concept in the design of historical imperial capitals. From Rome to Constantinople to Beijing, the architecture itself was a tool of governance designed to make every visitor feel small and insignificant in the face of the state. It works. You feel like an ant approaching a mountain. The city gates are a chaotic torrent of humanity. Merchants shouting, carts groaning under heavy loads, soldiers in gleaming armor, officials in sedan chairs carried by sweating porters. The noise, the smells, the sheer number of people is a sensory assault. You cling to your guide, terrified of being swallowed by the crowd. He navigates the throng with an expertise, leading you through a labyrinth of streets, each one busier and more overwhelming than the last. Finally, you arrive at the gates of the Forbidden City, or perhaps the outer courts of Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. This is not just a palace, it is a city within a city, a vast complex of courtyards, halls, and gardens, all separated from the outside world by another set of towering reed walls and a wide moat. This is where your new life will begin. But you don't just walk in. You are taken to a drab, institutional-looking building just outside the main palace grounds. This is the holding and training area for new eunuchs. Here you undergo another inspection. An older, stern-faced eunuch, a senior official in the palace administration, looks you over. He checks your wound for any signs of improper healing. He quizzes you to ensure you are quick-witted. And most importantly, he inspects your bow, your treasure, the preserved evidence of your sacrifice. He verifies its authenticity before logging it in a great book and storing it in a secure repository. This strange, bureaucratic ritual is a cold, hard fact of palace entry. Your most intimate, personal trauma is now a file in an imperial archive. Without it, you are an imposter. This is where you receive your new name. Your old name, the one your parents gave you, is erased. It belongs to the boy who ceased to exist in that small, dark room. You are given a new name, one that signifies your new status as a servant of the palace. It is a further stripping away of your old identity. Another step in reforging you into a tool of the imperial household. Historians still debate the full psychological impact of this renaming. Was it seen as a terrifying erasure of self, or was it, for some, a welcome chance to break from a past defined by poverty and pain? For you, it feels like another layer of strangeness, another piece of yourself you have to leave behind. You are assigned a room, a small, bare cell shared with several other new arrivals. They are boys like you, with the same haunted, wary look in their eyes. They come from all corners of the empire, each with a story of hunger and desperation. There is no camaraderie yet, only a shared, unspoken understanding of the price you have all paid to be here. You lie on your heart cot that night, the unfamiliar sounds of the palace drifting through the barred window. You can hear the distant clang of a guard's halberd, a faint strains of music from some unseen hall. You have made it. You have survived. You are at the very bottom rung of the most powerful place on earth. And you have never felt so alone. The first few weeks inside the palace walls are a period of intense and unsettling change. You're not just learning a new job. Your body is settling into a new and permanent reality. The initial, violent trauma of the operation is over, but now you begin to experience the lifelong consequences. You are, in essence, becoming a stranger in your own skin. One of the most immediate and humiliating changes is a physical one. Due to the nature of the surgery and the scarring, you, like a vast majority of eunuchs, suffer from some degree of urinary incontinence. This is a well-documented and historically accurate consequence of the procedure. It's a constant source of anxiety and shame. A slight cough, a laugh, lifting something heavy, any of these can lead to a small, embarrassing leak. You learn to manage it, to adopt certain postures, to always be aware of it. The faint, telltale odor becomes a source of deep-seated paranoia, a fear that others can smell your uncleanliness. This is why any senior eunuchs in later years would wear long, thick robes and use heavy perfumes, not just as a sign of wealth, but as a practical measure to mask this unfortunate reality. Then there are the more gradual changes. Without the hormones that doctor male puberty, your body develops along a different path. Your voice, which should be breaking and deepening, remains high-pitched like that of a child. It becomes a constant, audible reminder of your status. When you speak, you are instantly identifiable. Your facial hair never grows, leaving your skin smooth. The hair on your head, however, might start to thin prematurely. Over time, your body's shape begins to alter. You don't develop the muscle mass of a typical man. Instead, fat tends to accumulate around your hips, buttocks, and chest, giving you a softer, more rounded physique. You might grow taller than your brothers would have, as the fusion of your growth plates is delayed, leading to longer limbs. You become lanky with a unique physicality that sets you apart. This brings us to a lesser known, yet significant, health issue: bone density. The hormonal changes put you at a much higher risk for osteoporosis later in life. Your bones become more brittle, more susceptible to fractures. A fall that a normal man might shrug off could be catastrophic for an elderly eunuch. This is a medical fact that history has only recently been able to confirm by studying the skeletal remains of palace eunuchs. They lived lives of outward luxury, but their skeletons often told a story of fragility and chronic pain. And what of the psychological experience of living in this altered body? Historians still debate the depth of this internal identity crisis. Did eunuchs see themselves as men who were simply different? Or did they truly internalize the societal view of them as a third gender, neither male nor female? The answer is likely as varied as the individuals themselves, but for you, it is a daily confrontation in mirror. You see a face that is not quite a man's, hear a voice that is not a man's, and live in a body that feels alien. You are denied the simple, universal experience of growing into a familiar male form. It is a profound and unending state of physical otherness. You are living within a body that has been fundamentally re-engineered by a knife and a lack of hormones. You are constantly reminded of what was taken. The phantom pains, the strange new aches, the way your body responds or fails to respond to the world. You might see the palace guards, with their broad shoulders and deep voices, and feel a pang of something you can't even name. It's not necessarily envy, it's a sense of profound, unbridgeable difference. You are living proof that power in this world can come at the price of your own biology. The palace has given you a future, a roof over your head, and food in your belly. But, in exchange, it has taken ownership of your very flesh, re-molding you into something that serves its unique and unnatural needs. This body is no longer entirely your own. It is a uniform, tailored in flesh and bone, that you will wear for the rest of your days. Your new life is defined by routine, repetition, and a crushing sense of your own insignificance. As a new arrival, a junior eunuch, you are at the absolute bottom of a vast and complex hierarchy. The silk robes and whispered influence you were promised back in your village feel like a fevered dream. Your reality is coarse linen, calloused hands, and the constant, wearying ache of physical labor. Your days begin before dawn, long before the first rays of sun touch the golden old roofs. You wake in your cramped, cold dormitory to the sound of a harsh gong. You dress quickly and silently, and then your workday begins. The tasks are menial, endless, and utterly devoid of glamour. You are a human cog in the enormous machine that keeps the imperial household running. You might spend your day on your hands and knees, scrubbing endless stone courtyards until they gleam, or you might be assigned to the kitchens, the chaotic, steamy hell where you chop mountains of vegetables, haul heavy sacks of rice, and clean greasy pots until your arms feel like they're going to fall off. You might be tasked with carrying water, endless trips with 2 heavy buckets balanced on a pole across your shoulders, your back screaming in protest. Or perhaps you're in the laundry, your hands raw from the harsh lye soap as you wash the delicate silks of nobles you will never meet. Every task is performed under the watchful eye of a senior eunuch, a slightly older, more established servant who seems to take a grim pleasure in pointing out your mistakes. A spilled bucket of water, a poorly scrubbed floor, a moment of rest, any of these can earn you a sharp rebuke or a swift slap. This is a core part of the system. The oppressed become the oppressors. The senior eunuchs, having endured this treatment themselves, now perpetuate it, seeing it as a necessary way to weed out the weak and instilled discipline. One of the more surprisingly difficult jobs is that of a human piece of furniture. A mainstream historical fact is that eunuchs often served as living stands or props. You might be required to kneel for hours, holding a basin for a high-ranking concubine to wash her hands, or to stand perfectly still, holding a lantern aloft during a nighttime banquet, your muscles cramping and screaming in protest. The goal is to become invisible, to be present but unnoticed, a silent, functional object. It's a powerful lesson in humility and self-effacement. And here's a strange, specific detail of palace life: the obsession with cleanliness and order. In a place as crowded and complex as the Forbidden City, hygiene was a constant battle. A particularly dreaded task was cleaning the imperial commodities. These were not flush toilets, but ornate wooden boxes filled with fragrant ash or sand. It was your job to empty them, clean them meticulously, and replenish the ash. It was a smelly, unpleasant job, but it was also one of critical importance. Any lapse could lead to disease, and disease in the palace could have political consequences. Your diligence in the most disgusting of tasks was a measure of your reliability. Historians still debate the true purpose of this initial period of harsh labor. Was it purely practical, a way to get the palace's dirty work done as cheaply as possible? Or was it a calculated psychological tool, a way to break you down completely, to strip you of any lingering pride or sense of self-worth from your old life? By reducing you to the level of a beast of burden, the system ensured that when you were finally given even the slightest bit of responsibility, you would be overwhelmingly grateful. It was a process of emptying you out so that you could be filled with a new identity, that of a loyal and unquestioning servant of the emperor. In the evenings you collapse onto your cot, too tired to even think. You eat your simple meal better than the gruel you had at home, but still plain and monotonous. You fall asleep almost instantly, only to be woken by the gong a few short hours later to start the cycle all over again. There is no upward path visible from here. There is only the endless repetition of menial chores. You see the senior eunuchs in their fine clothes, whispering in the ears of powerful people, and they seem like a different species. The gap between your reality and theirs feels as wide as the ocean. You are just one of dozens of new boys, all with the same tired, hollowed out look. Many will falter. Some will break the rules and be severely punished, and some will simply lose hope. Your survival depends not on grand ambitions, but on the simple, brutal calculus of enduring one more day. As you settle into the grueling routine of your new life, you become acutely aware of your unique social position. It's a strange and isolating space that you occupy. You are not a man in the way the palace guards or the court officials are men. You cannot marry, have children, or carry on a family name. The fundamental social roles that define manhood in the outside world are forever close to you. But you are not a woman either. You work and live in close proximity to the thousands of women in the imperial harem, but you are not one of them. You are something else entirely. You are living the reality of what historians call the third gender. This isn't just a modern academic term. It reflects the way eunuchs were viewed and treated in their own time. They were a distinct social category, with their own rules, their own hierarchy, and their own unique relationship to power. You are in the palace precisely because you are neither male nor female in the conventional sense. A normal man could not be trusted in the inner sanctum of the palace, surrounded by the emperor's wives and concubines. His own ambitions and desires would make him a threat. A woman could not perform many of the administrative and security roles required. You, in your altered state, are seen as safe. You are the perfect intermediary, able to move between the male and female worlds of the court without truly belonging to either. This safety, however, comes at the cost of profound social and psychological isolation. You are an object of curiosity, pity, and often contempt. The palace maids and ladies in waiting might gossip with you, share secrets with you, but there is always a line. You are their guardian, their servant, their confidant, but never their equal. The guards and officials, on the other hand, often look down on you. They see you as incomplete, unnatural. Their masculinity is defined in opposition to what you are. They may have less influence than a high-ranking eunuch, but they possess a physical and social identity that you have been denied. They can go home to their wives and children. Your only family is the cold, competitive brotherhood of other eunuchs. This leads to a peculiar and little-known aspect of eunuch life. The language used to describe you. The insults are particularly revealing. In China, You might be called a hen that doesn't lay eggs or other derogatory terms that highlight your uselessness in a reproductive sense. These phrases, found in historical texts and literature, reveal a deep-seated societal anxiety about your status. You defy the natural order, and this makes people uncomfortable. Talking symbol of unnatural power, and the language used to demean you is a way for others to reassert their own sense of normalcy. The question of a eunuch's internal sense of identity is one of the most debated topics among historians. Did you internalize this third gender label? Did you create a new, proud identity around your unique role? Or did you spend your life feeling a sense of loss, mourning the manhood that was taken from you? It was likely a complex and deeply personal mixture of all these things. For you now, it is mostly a source of confusion and loneliness. You watch the easy camaraderie of the soldiers, the flirtatious banter between young maids and guards, the formal respect between officials. You are an observer of these social rituals, never a participant. You find yourself in a strange paradox. You are surrounded by people, living in one of the most densely populated places on Earth, yet you are fundamentally alone. Your closest relationships are with other eunuchs, but even that is fraught with rivalry and suspicion. You are all climbing the same slippery pole, and one man's advancement often means another's demotion. You learn to be guarded, to keep your thoughts to yourself, to present a placid and unreadable face to the world. Your loneliness is a prison, but it is also a shield. In the treacherous world of the court, to be an open book is to be a vulnerable target. You learn to find a strange sort of comfort in your isolation, to make a home in the empty space that society has carved out for you. You are an outsider on the inside, a ghost at the heart of the empire, and your survival depends on mastering the art of being seen without ever being truly known. The palace is not just a collection of buildings, it's a living ecosystem with its own unforgiving laws of nature. The official rules, the ones written down and posted on walls, are the easy part. Don't steal. Don't be late. Show deference to your superiors. You learn those quickly to avoid a beating. The hard part, the part that determines whether you rise or fall, is learning the unwritten rulebook. It's a complex library of subtle cues, unspoken allegiances, and deadly political currents that you must learn to navigate, or you will drown. Your education begins with observation. While you scrub floors or stand guard, you listen. You learn that power is not always where it seems to be. The stern-faced captain of the guard might look imposing, but he takes his orders from a frail-looking, elderly eunuch in the office of imperial seals. The beautiful, favored concubine might seem to be the emperor's favorite today, but you notice that the servants who attend her rival, the one from a powerful military family, are getting better food from the kitchens. These are the threads of influence, and you begin to see how they connect, forming a vast, invisible web. Acre lesson is the economy of information. Knowledge is the most valuable currency in the palace. A secret, even a small one, is a potential asset. You learn who is in debt, who is having a secret affair, which official dislikes another. You learn to listen more than you speak. An offhand comment you overhear between two maids could be a vital piece of intelligence. You learn to file these details away in your mind, not for immediate use, but as part of a growing mental map of the court's power dynamics. This is a historically accurate depiction of the eunuch's role. Because they moved through all areas of the palace, from the most private chambers to the most public halls, they were the nervous system of the court, the primary collectors and distributors of gossip and intelligence. You also learn the art of face. In the court, perception is reality. Showing the wrong emotion at the wrong time can be a fatal mistake. You learn to control your expression, to project an aura of calm competence even when you are terrified. You learn how to give and receive favors without ever explicitly acknowledging them. You might ensure an extra charcoal brazier is delivered to the quarters of a secretary in a key ministry on a cold night. You ask for nothing in return. But months later, when you need a document pushed through, you find the process is surprisingly smooth. This is the silent language of influence, a constant dance of obligation and reciprocity. Now for a peculiar, but vital, unwritten rule. Never outshine your master. If you are assigned to a particular official or concubine, your job is to make them look good. If you are too clever, too efficient, or too noticeable, you can be perceived as a threat or an embarrassment to your superior. You learn to perform your duties flawlessly but discreetly. Your successes must always be attributed to your master's wisdom and guidance. This is a dangerous tightrope walk. You must be competent enough to be useful, but not so competent that you become a target. Many ambitious young eunuchs made the mistake of showing off their talents too early, earning the jealousy of their immediate superiors, then finding themselves suddenly reassigned to cleaning the latrines for the rest of their careers. Historians often debate the true nature of this palace craft. Was it a sign of a corrupt and decadent system, a world of pure manipulation and backstabbing? Or was it a highly sophisticated, unnecessary set of skills for survival in a closed, high-stakes environment? The truth is, it was a system that rewarded cunning, unpunished naivete. It was amoral, but it had its own internal logic. For you, it's not a philosophical question, it's a matter of survival. You learn who to trust almost no one, who to fear almost everyone, and who to watch everyone. You learn that the quietest people are often the most dangerous. You learn that a smile can be a threat and a gift can be a trap. You start to see the palace not as a home, but as a vast, complex chessboard. Every person is a piece with a different set of moves, and you, a lowly pawn, are just now learning the rules of the game. Your ambition is no longer just to get a full meal and a warm bed, it's to stay on the board. In this vast, lonely palace, you begin to find a strange sort of belonging. It's not the warm, easy camaraderie of a family or a village. It's something more complex, more guarded, the brotherhood of the castrated. You are all part of an exclusive, involuntary club. Only another eunuch can truly understand the physical price you paid, the specific humiliations you endure, and the unique social space you inhabit. This shared experience creates a powerful, if often unspoken bond. This is the invisible community that thrives in the cracks of the imperial court. It has its own hierarchy, parallel to the official one. There are old ancestors, powerful and respected senior eunuchs who have served for decades. They are the gatekeepers and kingmakers within your community. Gaining the favor of one of these elders can change your entire career trajectory. They act as mentors, patrons, and protectors for younger eunuchs they deem promising. You learn to approach them with the utmost respect, to perform small services for them, to be a source of useful information, hoping to be taken under their wing. This mentorship system is a crucial, historically documented aspect of eunuch life. Since you have no biological father to guide you, these older eunuchs become surrogate father figures. They teach you the nuances of the unwritten rulebook, introduce you to key contexts, and shield you from the worst of palace politics. Of course, this protection is not free. You are expected to be utterly loyal to your patron, to be his eyes and ears, and to support his own ambitions. You become part of his network, his faction, and his enemies become your enemies. Then there's the day-to-day solidarity. You learn to cover for a fellow eunuch who is sick or has made a minor mistake. You share tips, which guards are lenient, which concubines are generous, which officials are best avoided. You might pool your meager savings to buy a small luxury, like a jug of wine or a special treat from the city, to share in the privacy of your quarters after a long day. These small acts of mutual support are a lifeline, a way to maintain a sliver of humanity in a dehumanizing environment. And here we find a strange and fascinating detail, the creation of eunuch temples and retirement homes. As they acquired wealth and influence, eunuch factions would often pool their resources to build special temples or communal living facilities outside the palace walls. These served as religious centers, social clubs, and, most importantly, as retirement homes. This was a solution to a terrifying problem. What happens to a eunuch when he gets too old or sick to work? Unlike other officials, you have no family estate to retire to, no children to care for you. These eunuch-funded institutions were a form of social security. They ensured that a member of the Brotherhood would have a place to live out his final years with dignity, cared for by his own kind. The existence of these buildings is a testament to the powerful sense of collective identity and mutual responsibility that developed within the eunuch community. Of course, this brotherhood is not a perfect, harmonious utopia. It is riven with the same jealousies and rivalries as the rest of the court. The competition for promotions and powerful positions is fierce. Your closest friend one day could be your bitter rival the next if you are both competing for the same coveted post. The factions are constantly shifting, with alliances forming and breaking. A whisper from a rival eunuch can undo years of hard work. You learn that even within this family, you must be cautious. Trust is a rare and precious commodity. Historians continue to explore the complexities of this internal eunuch society. Was it primarily a support network, a way for a marginalized group to look after its own? Or was it a political machine, a deep state within the palace that pursued its own collective agenda, often to the detriment of the empire? The answer, as always, is that it was both. It was a deeply human institution, born of shared trauma, that was both a source of comfort and a hotbed of political intrigue. It is your entire world, the court officials, the soldiers, the concubines, they are all outsiders. Your fate is tied to the men who share your strange destiny. You are a member of an invisible family, a brotherhood of shadows, and your survival and advancement depend entirely on your ability to navigate its intricate and often treacherous internal politics. The palace provides for all your material needs. You have a place to sleep, clothes on your back, and food in your belly. But it cannot fill the profound, aching void left by the absence of family. The desire for kinship, for the simple, human connection of parent and child, is a powerful and persistent ghost that haunts the corridors of your new life. You see officials receiving letters from their sons, you watch concubines doting on the imperial princes, and you feel a deep, instinctual longing for something you can never have. To fill this void, you and your fellow eunuchs create a unique solution. You from your own families. This is a well-documented and fascinating aspect of eunuch culture. Since you cannot have biological children, you adopt them. This practice of adopting sons was incredibly common, especially among successful, high-ranking eunuchs. Your adopted son would not be another eunuch. He would typically be a young boy from your home province, often a distant nephew or the child of a poor family, willing to give him up for the promise of a better life. This adopted son becomes the center of your world. You raise him, educate him, and shower him with the affection and resources you have accumulated. He takes your adopted surname and refers to you as father. This is not just a sentimental arrangement, it is a deeply practical one. Your adopted son can do things you cannot. He can own property in his own name outside the palace. He can interact with the outside world as a normal citizen. And most importantly, he can carry on your legacy, performing the ancestral rites at your grave after you die. He is your heir, the anchor for your worldly success. And here we touch upon a strange and somewhat morbid detail of this practice, the purification of the adopted son. Before a boy could be formally adopted by a powerful eunuch, he might have to undergo a small symbolic ceremony. This sometimes involved a tiny, almost invisible incision made near his groin by a knife artisan. It shed a single drop of blood, a ritualistic act meant to signify that the boy was now of the same flesh as his eunuch father, symbolically sharing in his castrated state without being physically harmed. It was a bizarre and psychologically complex ritual that bound the adopted son to his new father's unique identity. The relationship you have with your adopted son is one of intense emotional investment. You pour all your frustrated paternal instincts into him. His successes become your successes. You use your influence within the palace to secure him a good education or a position in the civil service. This is one of the primary ways that eunuch power bled out from the palace walls and into the broader, administration of the empire. The sons of powerful eunuchs often became a powerful political bloc in their own right, loyal to their adoptive father's factions. Historians still debate the true nature of these adoptive families. Were they genuine attempts to replicate the loving bonds of a real family? Or were they primarily strategic alliances, a way for ambitious eunuchs to project their power into the future and secure their lineage in the only way available to them? It was undoubtedly a mixture of both. The letters and poems that survive between some eunuchs and their adopted sons are filled with genuine affection and fatherly pride, but the political and financial benefits were undeniable. For you, a low-ranking eunuch, adopting a son is a distant dream, a privilege reserved for your superiors. But you see it all around you. You see the pride in an old eunuch's eyes as he speaks of his son's achievements in the provincial exams. You see the way these families function as tight-knit units, protecting each other and advancing their collective interests. And you start to participate in a lesser form of this kinship. You might form a sworn brotherhood with a few other eunuchs of your own rank, becoming brothers. You look out for each other, share resources, and pledge to care for one another in sickness and old age. You create a web of artificial kinship, a fragile support system built to replace the one that was taken from you. It is a testament to the enduring human need for connection, a need so powerful that it will invent new forms of family when the old ones are destroyed. For years, your life has been a monotonous cycle of hard labor and quiet observation. You've survived. You've learned the rules, both written and unwritten. You've become a part of the palace's invisible machinery. But you are still a nobody, a faceless servant among thousands. Then, one day, an opportunity arises. It's not a dramatic, thunderous event. It's a small, quiet moment, a tiny crack in the wall of your anonymity that, if you're smart enough, you can pry open. Perhaps you've been assigned to a new, less grueling post. Instead of scrubbing floors, you are now tasked with maintaining the study of a low-ranking court scholar or a secretary in one of the endless government bureaus. Your job is still menial, grinding ink, tidying scrolls, keeping the lamps filled. But for the first time, you are in proximity to the real work of the empire, the flow of paper, the whisper of policy. Your master is a harried, overlooked official, buried under a mountain of documents. He barely notices you. You are just part of the furniture. But you watch him. You see the frustration on his face as he searches for a misplaced document. You hear him muttering about a quote from a classic text that he can't quite recall. And here your own hidden skills come into play. Perhaps in the long, boring hours of your youth, you had a secret passion for reading and managed to learn a few characters. Or maybe you just have a good memory. One evening, as your master is struggling, you make a gamble. In a quiet, deferential tone, you say, "Honorable sir, perhaps the scroll you are looking for is the one with the green silk tie. I believe I placed it on the third shelf yesterday." Or, even more daringly, "Forgive this servant's presumption, but is the phrase you seek from the Analects concerning the duty of a good minister?" Your heart is pounding. You have broken the cardinal rule of being an invisible servant. You have shown initiative. You have revealed a piece of yourself. For a moment, the official just stares at you, shocked that the ink grinder has a voice, let alone a thought. This is the pivot point. He could be angry at your impertinence and have you sent back to the scullery. But he is tired and desperate. He checks the third shelf, and there is the scroll. He considers your suggested quote, and a look of relief washes over his face. "Yes, that's it," he mutters. "He doesn't praise you. He doesn't thank you. He doesn't thank you. He just grunts and goes back to his work." He looks at you differently. He starts asking you to find documents for him directly. He relies on your memory. You have made yourself useful in a way that goes beyond simple labor. You have become a tool for his mind, not just his household. This is the classic, historically accurate path to advancement for a eunuch. It wasn't about brute strength or good looks. It was about intelligence, discretion, and making yourself indispensable to the right person. You find a patron. It could be a scholar, a minor concubine, an aging dowager. You learn their habits, anticipate their needs, and solve their small problems before they even know they have them. You become their confidant, the one person they can speak to without pretense. Here's a small but telling detail: the power of literacy. In a world where many people, even some in positions of power, were only semi-literate, a eunuch who could read and write well was an incredibly valuable asset. You could read sensitive documents to your master, help draft letters, and keep records. And as you already know, information is power. You are no longer just a servant, you are a private secretary, a keeper of secrets. Historians often argue about the catalyst for a eunuch's rise. Was it sheer luck, being in the right place at the right time? Or was it the result of years of patient, calculated strategy? In your case, it feels like a bit of both. You were lucky to be assigned to this post, but you were smart enough to recognize and seize the opportunity when it presented itself. It was a calculated risk that paid off. Your relationship with your patron deepens. He starts to talk to you, not just at you. He complains about his rivals, confides his ambitions. You listen, you offer quiet, sensible advice, and you never repeat a word of it to anyone else. You have earned his trust. This is the first real rung on the ladder. You are no longer an anonymous face in the crowd. You are someone's eunuch. You have hitched your wagon to a star, a small, dim star for now, but a star nonetheless. Your fate to theirs. If they rise, you will rise with them. For the first time in years, you feel a flicker of something you had long since extinguished: hope. Your master's star begins to rise, and you rise with it. Thanks to your quiet competence, his work becomes more efficient, his reports more polished. He starts to get noticed by his superiors, and when he gets a promotion, he takes you with him. Your loyalty has paid off. Your new position is one of immense trust and even greater danger. You are being transferred to the inner court. You are to become a guardian in the harem. The inner court is the true heart of the palace, a world sealed off from the rest of the empire. It is the domain of the emperor's mother, his wife, and his hundreds of concubines and their children. This is the forbidden part of the forbidden city, a place where no man, other than the emperor himself and his eunuch servants, is ever allowed to set foot. Your very presence here is a testament to the trust you have earned. You are considered safe, a harmless creature in a garden of temptations. The atmosphere here is completely different from the bureaucratic outer offices. The air is thick with the scent of expensive incense and flowers. The sounds are of rustling silk, quiet laughter, and the soft notes of a zither being played in a hidden courtyard. The women you serve are the most cost-constrained people in the empire. They live lives of incredible luxury, surrounded by beauty and servants, but they are also prisoners in a gilded cage. Their entire existence revolves around one thing: gaining and keeping the emperor's favor. This makes the harem a hotbed of intense, whispered rivalries. It's a place of subtle poisons, both literal and metaphorical. A rumor, a misplaced word, a perceived slight, these are the weapons in a constant, silent war for status and influence. Your job is to be the eyes and ears of your new mistress, perhaps one of the emperor's junior consorts. You are her gatekeeper, her messenger, and her spy. You manage her household, schedule her appointments, and carry her messages to the outside world. This brings us to a mainstream historical point: the unique power of the harem eunuch. You are the sole bridge between the female world of the inner court and the male world of the government. A concubine who wants to help her brother get a promotion in the army cannot speak to the Minister of War, but she can speak to you. And you, with the networks you have carefully cultivated, can speak to another eunuch who serves the minister. You become a conduit for influence, a broker of power operating in the shadows. Here's a peculiar and specific detail about your new role. You become an expert in things you will never experience. You become a connoisseur of women's fashions, knowing which silks are most prized, which hairpins are in vogue. You learn the intricate rules of cosmetics and the symbolic language of flowers. You might even be tasked with procuring rare and exotic aphrodisiacs or medicines for your mistress. You are an intimate part of a world of femininity and procreation, yet you are forever an outsider to it. This creates a strange psychological dissonance, making you an expert in a game you can never play. The question of the relationships between eunuchs and the women of the harem is a subject of endless fascination and debate for historians. Were these relationships purely professional? Or did they, in the loneliness of the gilded cage, sometimes blossom into deep, platonic friendships? Some accounts speak of eunuchs and concubines who became genuine confidants, sharing their hopes and fears in a world where true friends were scarce. A eunuch might be the only personal aide he could be truly herself with. Conversely, a cruel or manipulative concubine could make her eunuch's life a living hell, using him as a scapegoat or a pawn in her schemes. Your life is now a delicate balancing act. You must be fiercely loyal to your own mistress, but you cannot afford to make powerful enemies of her rivals. You learn to navigate the treacherous social landscape with a smile and a bow, your true thoughts and allegiances hidden behind a mask of perfect servitude. You see the immense power that these women wield through their influence on the emperor, and you realize that by serving them, you are getting closer to the ultimate source of all power. You are no longer on the periphery. You are one step away from the sun itself. The stakes are higher than ever before. A mistake here won't just get you sent back to the scullery, it could get you killed. But the potential rewards are finally beginning to match the terrible price you paid to be here. Your mistress's favor grows, and with it, your access. You are no longer just a servant in the inner court. You are a familiar face, a trusted messenger. And one day, the ultimate door opens. Through a combination of your mistress's recommendation and your own reputation for discretion and competence, you are chosen for a new role. You are to become a personal attendant to the emperor himself. This is the pinnacle of a eunuch's career. You have reached the center of the spider's web. From this point on, you will live your life in the immediate orbit of the most powerful man in the world. You are his valet, his butler, his private secretary, and, in time, perhaps his only true friend. Your new duties are intimate and all-encompassing. You are the first person he sees at night. You help him dress in his ceremonial dragon robes, a process involving dozens of layers and specific, ancient protocols. You serve him his meals, first tasting every dish yourself to check for poison, a very real and constant threat. You are with him in his most private moments. You are there when he is sick, when he is angry, when he is grieving. You see the emperor not as a divine being, but as a man with all his flaws, fears, and insecurities. You know which of his sons he truly favors, which of his ministers he secretly despises, and which of his concubines can soothe his temper. This intimate knowledge is the source of your newfound power. You are the gatekeeper to the emperor's presence. A high-ranking general who wants an audience must go through you. A minister who wants to present a memorial must hand it to you first. You decide who gets to see him and when. You can subtly influence his mood before a crucial meeting, perhaps by mentioning a piece of good news or a flattering report. This role as the emperor's shadow is a core reason why eunuchs became so powerful in many empires, from Rome to the Ottoman Empire to China. Because they had no family loyalties, no wives or sons whose ambitions could compete with the throne, they were seen as uniquely trustworthy. They could have no dynastic ambitions of their own. The emperor could confide in you in a way he could never confide in his own brothers or sons, who might be plotting to usurp him. You are his creature, entirely dependent on his favor for your survival and status. Your loyalty is, in theory, absolute. And here we come to a bizarre and specific detail of your new life. You become the emperor's memory. The ruler is besieged by thousands of details, faces, and requests. He cannot possibly remember them all. You become his living database. When an obscure provincial official is granted an audience, you are the one who whispers in the emperor's ear, "Your Majesty, this is Governor Wang from the southern province. He is the one who successfully put down the salt smugglers last year. His third son is a promising scholar." This ability to recall details makes the emperor seem omniscient and impresses his subjects, but it is your knowledge that fuels the illusion. The nature of the relationship between an emperor and his favorite eunuch is a topic of great debate among historians. Was it a simple master-servant dynamic or something more? Some sources paint a picture of genuine, deep affection. An emperor who grew up with a particular eunuch as his childhood playmate might come to see him as a brother or a father figure. They shared a lifetime of secrets and experiences. Other accounts are more cynical, suggesting that even the most favored eunuch was still just a disposable tool, a pet who could be discarded the moment he ceased to be useful or amusing. For you, the relationship is terrifyingly real. You find yourself developing a genuine affection and protectiveness for this man, this son of heaven. His burdens are immense, his loneliness profound. You are his confidant, his shield against the endless demands of the court. But you are also acutely aware that your life is tied to his by a fragile thread. His good mood is your security, his anger is your peril. You are walking on a tightrope made of silk, suspended over a chasm of political intrigue. You have the emperor's ear, a position that others would kill for. And you know, with chilling certainty, that they might just try. Your proximity to the emperor gives you unparalleled access, but true, lasting power in the empire is not just about whispered secrets. It's about controlling the machinery of government. You've noticed that the most influential of the senior eunuchs are not just personal attendants. They are administrators. They hold key positions in the palace bureaucracy. And so, you begin your next transformation, from a personal servant into a political operator. Your literacy, unsharp mind, once a simple tool to make yourself useful, now become your greatest weapon. You petition for, or are granted, a position in one of the powerful eunuch-run directorates. In Ming China, these were known as the 12 Directorates, a parallel administration that controlled everything from the palace provisions and construction projects to the imperial workshops and, most importantly, the flow of official documents. You have traded the emperor's dressing chamber for an office, and the silk robes for a stack of bamboo scrolls and ink brushes. Your new world is one of accounts, records, and seals. This is the boring, unglamorous side of power, but it is the most potent. This is a fundamental historical truth. Bureaucracy is power. The person who controls the paperwork controls the state. You might be assigned to the Directorate of Ceremonies, where you oversee the incredibly complex rituals that govern court life. By subtly tweaking the guest list for a state banquet, you can honor an ally or snub a rival. Or you might work in the Directorate of the Imperial Household, managing the vast budgets that keep the palace running. By approving one contract and delaying another, you can enrich your friends and bankrupt your enemies. You discover a particular aptitude for numbers, while the scholar officials are busy writing beautiful poetry and debating Confucian ethics. You are balancing the books. You learn to read budgets and find hidden streams of revenue. You become an expert in logistics, supply chains, and procurement. The army needs new supplies for a border campaign. The request must pass across your desk. The emperor wants a new pavilion built in the palace gardens. You are the one who oversees the budget and hires the artisans. This gives you immense patronage. You can grant lucrative contracts to merchants and officials who are loyal to your faction, creating a vast network of obligation that extends far beyond the palace walls. Now for a specific, and often overlooked, source of eunuch power, the imperial workshops. These were not just little craft shops. They were massive, state-run factories that produced the finest silks, porcelains, lacquerware, and other luxury goods for the court. As a eunuch administrator, you might be put in charge of one of these workshops. This makes you a major industrial manager. You control the lives of thousands of skilled artisans, And, more importantly, you control the distribution of these highly coveted goods. A gift of a rare vase to the right minister, or the sale of surplus silks on the open market, can generate huge profits and secure powerful allies. The rise of eunuchs as a powerful administrative class creates a deepened, abiding tension with the traditional civil service. The scholar officials are mandarins. This is a central, recurring conflict in the history of many dynasties. The scholar officials see you as an uneducated, illegitimate usurper of their rightful authority. They have spent years studying the classics and passing grueling exams to earn their positions. You, in their eyes, have risen to power through a back door, through personal service and court intrigue. They despise you, and the feeling is mutual. You see them as pompous, impractical idealists who don't understand how the world really works. Historians still debate the effects of this eunuch-run shadow government. Was it a source of corruption and instability, as the traditional histories, mostly written by their scholar, official rivals, claim? Or was it, at times, a more efficient and pragmatic form of administration, free from the factionalism and rigid ideology of the Mandarin class? There is evidence for both arguments. Some eunuch administrators were notoriously corrupt, amassing vast personal fortunes. Others were surprisingly effective, loyal servants who ran their departments with ruthless efficiency. For you, it's not a theoretical debate. It is a daily struggle for control. You are building your power base, not just on personal proximity to the emperor, but on the solid foundation of institutional control. You have your hand on the levers of the state. You are no longer just a shadow, you are a force, a bureaucrat whose signature on a document can change the fortunes of thousands. The poor, illiterate boy from the village is now a master of the pen and the abacus, and he is discovering that they are far mightier than any sword. You have now mastered the two pillars of influence, proximity to the emperor and control of the bureaucracy. The final piece of the puzzle is to learn how to leverage these assets to play the great game of court politics. You must become a master of indirect power, of shaping events without ever appearing to do so. This is the art of the silent threat, the whispered suggestion, the unseen manipulation. Your office becomes a hub of information and influence. Officials who need a favor come to you. They don't come demanding things. They come bearing gifts, offering friendship, speaking in veiled, polite terms. You learn to read between the lines, to understand the true request hidden beneath layers of flattery. A provincial governor might inquire about the health of the emperor's third son, and you understand he is signaling his support for that prince's faction in the succession struggle. You learn to give non-committal answers that keep your own options open while subtly encouraging his loyalty. A key tool in your arsenal is the control of information reaching the emperor. This is a classic and historically verified tactic of powerful eunuchs. The emperor is a busy man. He cannot read every important petition that comes into the palace. He relies on you and your colleagues to summarize them for him. This gives you enormous power. By choosing which reports to highlight and which to bury at the bottom of the pile, you can shape his perception of reality. You might make sure the emperor sees every report about minor disciplinary problems in his army. If another official is your ally, you ensure the emperor hears glowing praise of his administration, perhaps even exaggerating his successes slightly. You are not lying, merely curating the truth to your advantage. You also master the art of planting ideas. You never tell the emperor what to do. That would be a fatal error. Instead, you make him believe your ideas are his own. While attending to him one evening, you might let out a theatrical sigh and say, "It is a pity, Your Majesty, that the southern canals are in such disrepair. Trade suffers, and the people are unhappy. If only there were a truly capable and energetic man to oversee the project." You already have a man in mind, an ally who needs a powerful and lucrative post. A few weeks later, when the emperor independently comes up with the brilliant idea to appoint that very man to fix the canals, you offer him your most sincere admiration for his wisdom. Here's a specific, and rather insidious technique you employ, the controlled leak. You have a piece of damaging information about a rival minister, perhaps evidence of his corruption. You don't present it to the emperor yourself. That would be too direct and could make you look vindictive. Instead, you discreetly leak the information to a member of the censorate, the government's official watchdog body, who you know dislikes the minister in question. The censor then launches an independent investigation and formally impeaches the minister. Your enemy is removed, your hands appear clean, and you have earned the gratitude of the censor who gets credit for exposing corruption. The extent to which powerful eunuchs consciously manipulated the state for their own ends is a subject of intense historical debate. Were they master puppeteers, pulling the strings of the entire government, or were they simply skilled survivors, reacting to events and trying to protect themselves and their sovereign in a treacherous environment? The records left by their enemies, the scholar officials, paint them as monstrous villains, but a more nuanced reading suggests a complex reality of shifting alliances and competing interests. Where eunuchs were just one of several powerful factions, you are now at the center of this web. You build your faction, promoting loyalists, undermining rivals, and forging temporary alliances. You are playing a deadly game of three-dimensional chess. Your power is immense, but it is also fragile. It is not based on land, title, or birthright. It is based entirely on your influence over one man and your control over the flow of paper. You have to be constantly vigilant, watching for threats from all sides, from the scholar officials who despise you, from rival eunuch factions, from the imperial princes, and even from the emperor's own fickle moods. You have reached the summit, but the air is thin and the footing is treacherous. One wrong step, and the fall will be long and final. Let's pause your personal journey for a moment and look at a real-life example of someone who reached the absolute zenith of eunuch power. Your own story, your rise from poverty and pain to influence and authority, is not a fantasy. It, or something very much like it, was the life path of some of the most formidable figures in history. Let's talk about a man named Wei Zongxian, who lived in the late Ming Dynasty in China. To his enemies, he was a monster, a tyrant who nearly destroyed the empire. To his supporters, he was a decisive and powerful protector of the throne. The truth, as always, is somewhere in between. Wei Zongxian's story begins just like yours. He was born into poverty, had no prospects, and made the desperate choice to have himself castrated as an adult to try and gain entry into the Forbidden City. He was already in his 20s, much older than most, and was illiterate. His early years in the palace were spent in menial jobs, gambling on getting into trouble. He was a lowlife, a nobody. He was you, scrubbing floors and dreaming of something more. His first break was exactly like yours. He managed to get a position, serving in the household of the emperor's favorite concubine. There, he became the friend and servant of her young son, the future emperor. This is that critical step we talked about, attaching yourself to a rising star. Wei was clever, charismatic in a thuggish way, and fiercely loyal to the young prince. They grew up together, forming a deep and powerful bond. When the old emperor died and the young prince ascended the throne as the Qianqi emperor, Wei Zongxian's fortune was made. The new emperor was young, uninterested in the tedious business of governing, and had a passion for carpentry. This is a bizarre but true historical fact. The Qianqi emperor loved to spend his days in his workshop, building intricate wooden furniture, and he left the running of the empire to the one person he trusted implicitly, his childhood friend, Wei Zongxian. Wei Zongxian. Wei, the once illiterate street tough, was now the de facto ruler of China. He consolidated his power with terrifying speed and efficiency, using all the techniques you have just learned. He was made the head of the fearsome Eastern Depot, the eunuch-led secret police, giving him the power to arrest, torture, and execute anyone he deemed an enemy of the state. He controlled all document flow to the emperor, He built a massive political faction, promoting his loyalists, who became known as the Eunuch Party, to all key positions in the government. Officials who opposed him were ruthlessly purged. The backlash from the scholar officials, particularly the idealistic Donglin faction, was immense. They saw Wei as the ultimate evil, a perversion of all Confucian values. They wrote scathing memorials, condemning his corruption and tyranny. Wei's response was brutal. He used the secret police to round up his critics, subjecting them to horrific tortures and public executions. For a few years, his power was absolute. It reached such a level that temples were built in his honor all across China, proclaiming him to be as great as Confucius. Officials would refer to him as 9,000 years, a title second only to the emperor's 10,000 years. The case of Wei Zongxian is what historians are really wrestling with when they debate eunuch power. Was he an anomaly, a singular monster who arose due to a weak emperor? Or was he the logical culmination of the entire system, the inevitable result of a government structure that allowed for such a concentration of extra-legal power in one man's hands? Was his cruelty a personal failing, or was it a necessary tool to maintain control against the entrenched power of the scholar official class who wanted him destroyed? Wei Zongxian's story serves as both an inspiration and a terrifying warning for you. It shows the dizzying heights that one of your kind can achieve. He had it all: wealth beyond measure, power over life and death, the loyalty of a vast network. He was the ultimate success story. But his power was entirely dependent on the life and favor of one man. And emperors, like all men, do not live forever. His story is a testament to the fact that the higher you climb, the more precarious your position becomes, and the more you have to lose. You watch, you learn, and you understand that Wei Zongxian is your ghost of Christmas future, a vision of what you could become. For better and for worse, you now live a life that the small, hungry boy in the mud brick hut could not have even imagined in his wildest dreams. The memory of that life is still there, a cold stone in the pit of your stomach, but it is now overlaid with layers of silk, jade, and gold. The contrast between your past and your present is a dizzying, daily reality. You no longer sleep in a crowded dormitory on a straw pallet. You have your own private apartments within the palace, a series of beautifully appointed rooms filled with lacquered furniture, intricate screens, and soft, thick carpets. The air is scented with expensive incense, not the stench of unwashed bodies in despair. You are attended by your own retinue of junior eunuchs, young boys who look at you with the same mixture of fear and awe that you once had for your own superiors. They scurry to do your bidding, anticipating your every need. Your coarse linen tunic has been replaced by robes of the finest silk, dyed in rich, deep colors and embroidered with auspicious symbols. The fabrics are so soft, they feel like water flowing over your skin. You wear a cap of office, adorned with jade and pearls, signifying your high rank. On your finger, you might wear a heavy gold ring, a gift from a grateful merchant, or a thumb ring of pure white jade, a sign of your refined taste. When you move through the palace, people bow. They clear a path for you. The silence that follows you is no longer one of contemptuous dismissal, but one of fear and respect. The watery gruel of your childhood is a distant memory. You now dine on the most exquisite food the empire has to offer. Your meals are elaborate affairs with dozens of dishes, each one a work of art. Delicate fish steamed with ginger, tender duck roasted to perfection. Exotic fruits brought from the furthest southern provinces at great expense. You drink fine wine from porcelain cups and sip rare teas that are worth more than a farmer's entire yearly income. This is a core part of the reward system. The luxury is a physical manifestation of your status, a constant reminder of how far you have come. And then there is the wealth. This is the tangible proof of your success. Through your control of government contracts, your management of imperial workshops, and the endless gifts that flow your way from those seeking your favor, you have amassed a staggering personal fortune. You have chests filled with gold and silver ingots. You own properties outside the palace, registered in the name of your adopted son. You are a collector of fine art, of rare books, of beautiful antiquities. This accumulation of wealth is a well-documented feature of powerful eunuchs. They were often among the richest individuals in the empire. This juxtaposition of extreme suffering and extreme luxury is one of the central paradoxes of your existence. You paid for this comfort with a piece of your own body, with a lifetime of physical ailments and psychological scars. Does the silk feel soft enough to make you forget the feeling of the cold steel? Does the taste of the wine wash away the memory of the burning chili paste? This is a question that historians and psychologists can only speculate on. Did this luxury bring genuine happiness and contentment? Or was it a frantic attempt to fill a void that could never be filled? You might find yourself, in a quiet moment late at night, touching the fine silk of your sleeve and thinking of the rough homespun of your mother's tunic. You might look at your vast, empty rooms and feel a pang of loneliness that is sharper than any hunger you ever knew. The power and wealth are real. They are a shield against the world, a balm for the wounds of your past. But they are also a cage, a different kind of gilded cage from the one that holds the concubines. It's a cage of responsibility, of constant vigilance, and of deep, unshakable otherness. You have everything a man could want, except the one thing you can never get back. The boy you were sacrificed himself so that the man you have become could live in splendor. You owe it to him to enjoy it, but you are haunted by the price he paid. You have wealth. You have influence. You have the emperor's ear. But power is a hungry ghost, and it is never satisfied. The lines you once drew for yourself, the moral boundaries you thought you would never cross, begin to blur. The struggle for survival has slowly, imperceptibly, morphed into a quest for absolute security, and that quest can look a lot like pure, unadulterated greed. It starts small. A merchant offers you a gift for expediting a government contract. At first, you might hesitate, remembering the idealistic scholar officials who rail against corruption. But you know this is how the system works. It's the grease that keeps the wheels of government turning. And besides, your rival in the Directorate of Works is certainly taking his cut. If you don't, you are not being noble. You are being noble. You are being noble. You are being a fool. So you accept the gift. And the next one. It's no longer a passive acceptance, it's an expectation. You have a price for your services, and people know they have to pay it. This is the classic, slippery slope of corruption, a pattern seen in countless historical contexts. It is rarely a conscious decision to become a villain. It is a series of small compromises, each one easier to justify than the last. You tell yourself you are doing it for your family, for your adopted son, to secure his future, and for your eunuch brothers, to fund your retirement temple. You are building a network, a safety net, but a part of you knows you are also doing it for the sheer thrill of it, for the confirmation of your own power. Your methods become more ruthless. An official from a rival faction stands in your way. In your early days, you might have tried to patiently maneuver around him. Now, you have more direct tools at your disposal. You no longer just leak information, you fabricate it. You have your agents in the secret police created dossier of false accusations against him, corruption, treason, it doesn't matter. You present this evidence to the emperor, feigning regret that such a seemingly loyal official has turned out to be a traitor. The official is arrested, his family is ruined, and his position is given to one of your loyalists. You sleep soundly that night, telling yourself you have simply removed an obstacle to the smooth running of the empire and the protection of the throne. This descent into tyranny is a common charge leveled against powerful eunuchs in historical texts. Men like Xiao Gao in the Qin dynasty or Wei Zhongxian, whom we discussed, are portrayed as monsters of cruelty and avarice. And here we touch upon a strange, dark psychological aspect that has been noted in the historical record, a potential for cruelty born from past trauma. Some accounts suggest that certain eunuchs, having suffered such a brutal and dehumanizing experience themselves, lost their capacity for empathy. They saw the world as a place of pure power dynamics, where the strong devour the weak, and they were determined to be the strong. It's as if their own pain hollowed out a space inside them that could only be filled with the exercise of power over others. Historians debate whether this eunuch cruelty is a historical reality or a slanderous trope invented by their enemies. Was there something inherent in the eunuch experience that made them more prone to corruption and abuse of power? Or were they simply human beings, placed in a position of extraordinary temptation and pressure, who responded as many other non-eunuch officials did throughout histories? The scholar officials who wrote the histories were also guilty of factionalism, corruption, and ruining their rivals. Perhaps your sins are not unique in kind, only in scale. You are now a formidable and feared figure. You have a network of spies and enforcers. Your wealth is legendary. Your enemies are silent, either vanquished or too terrified to speak. You have achieved the absolute security you craved, but it has come at a cost. You trust no one, because you know how easily loyalty can be bought or coerced. You are surrounded by sycophants who tell you only what you want to hear. The genuine, if cautious, brotherhood you once felt with your fellow eunuchs has been replaced by a relationship of master and underlings. You have become isolated at the top of your own pyramid of power, a prisoner of the very fortress you built to protect yourself. The boy who was sacrificed for survival has given way to a man who might be sacrificing the entire empire for his own ambition. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. As your power has grown, so has the hatred of your sworn enemies, the scholar official class, the mandarins, the Confucian idealists who see you as a walking, talking abomination, the cancer at the heart of the empire. Their opposition is not just about political rivalry, it is a fundamental clash of worldviews. You represent everything they are not. They come from landed gentry, from families with long, proud lineages. You come from the dirt. They achieve their positions through years of grueling study and a deep knowledge of the classics, poetry, and philosophy. You achieved your position through a knife, personal service, and a mastery of the dark arts of court politics. They see themselves as the moral and intellectual guardians of civilization. They see you as an illiterate, grasping thug who has usurped their rightful place. This conflict is a central theme in the history of dynastic China, and it plays out in similar ways in other courts with powerful eunuch factions. The scholar officials, or shidafu, believe that the government should be run by virtuous, educated men who govern according to timeless moral principles. Your very existence is an affront to this ideal. You are a servant who has become a master, a perversion of the natural social order. Their attacks on you are relentless and come from many angles. They write philosophical essays and poems, not mentioning you by name, but lamenting the dark times and the rise of petty men who have the ear of the emperor. It's a forum of high-minded, indirect criticism that circulates among the educated elite, poisoning your reputation and painting you as an enemy of culture and propriety. They also use the formal mechanisms of government against you. The censorate, the official government watchdog, is their primary weapon. Brave or reckless censors will submit formal memorials to the throne, listing your alleged crimes in painstaking detail, your corruption, your usurpation of imperial authority. They call for your impeachment and execution. You use your influence with the emperor to have these memorials dismissed and the censors punished, exiled to a remote border post, or worse. But for everyone you silence, another seems to rise up, fueled by a sense of righteous duty. Here's a small but fascinating detail of this conflict: the war over history. The scholar officials are the ones who write the official court diaries and, eventually, the dynastic histories. They are acutely aware that they are writing for posterity. In their records, they meticulously document your every misdeed, real or imagined. They portray your allies as craven opportunists and your enemies as noble martyrs. They are fighting a long game. They know that even if they can't defeat you now, they can destroy your name for all time. They can ensure that for the next 1,000 years, you will be remembered as a villain. This is why historical accounts of powerful eunuchs are almost universally negative. They were written by their mortal enemies. The very nature of this conflict is a subject of ongoing historical debate. Was it truly a noble struggle between virtue and corruption, as the scholar officials claimed? Or was it simply a turf war, a raw-bar struggle between two competing elites, the inner court of the emperor and his eunuchs, and the outer court of the formal bureaucracy? Many modern historians argue for the latter. They suggest that the Mandarin's high-minded rhetoric was often a cover for their own factional interests and their frustration at being sidelined by a more efficient and more ruthless political force. For you, this is not an academic discussion. It is a daily war. You see these officials in court, with their long sleeves and their condescending smiles. You know that behind their polite bows, they are plotting your downfall. They are plotting your downfall. Their hatred is a constant pressure, a reminder that your power, however great, is not absolute. It forces you to be ever more reliant on your own faction, on your secret police, than on the emperor's favor. Their opposition pushes you into a corner, forcing you to become more extreme, more tyrannical, just to defend yourself. You are locked in a death struggle with the very soul of the government, and you know that this cannot last forever. One side must eventually break. Your entire world, the vast and intricate palace of power you have built, rests on a single, living foundation, the emperor. His favor is the sun that gives you life. His word is the shield that protects you from your enemies. But the sun sets and shields can break. The emperor is a man, and men are mortal. He begins to age. His step becomes slower, his voice weaker. The whispers in the corridors of the palace change from gossip about promotions to speculation about the succession. You watch his health with an all-consuming anxiety. Every cough, every stumble, every moment of forgetfulness sends a jolt of ice through your veins. You bring in the best physicians. You supervise the preparation of his medicines. You pray to the gods for his longevity. Your concern is not just born of personal affection, though that may be part of it. It is born of pure. You are the emperor's creature. When he is gone, what will become of you? This is the inherent, fatal flaw in the power of a court favorite, a truth that echoes through history from the Roman Sejanus to the Russian Rasputin. Power derived from a personal relationship with the ruler is, by its very nature, temporary. It has no institutional legitimacy of its own. When the ruler dies, the source of that power is cut off. You are left exposed. You are left exposed. A lightning rod for all the resentments and hatreds that have been building for years. The tension in the court becomes unbearable. The different factions begin to coalesce around the leading candidates for the throne, the emperor's sons. The princes who once treated you with a fearful respect now look at you with cold calculation. They are trying to decide if you are a potential ally or a liability to be discarded. You have to make a choice, one of the most dangerous gambles of your life. Which prince do you back? You study them carefully. The eldest son is the rightful heir, but he is close to the scholar officials and has openly expressed his distaste for your influence. Backing him would be suicide. Another son is a fierce warrior, popular with the army, but unpredictable and violent. A third son is young, seemingly pliable, but perhaps too weak to hold the throne. You use your spy network to gauge their strengths, their weaknesses, their secret allegiances. You are trying to choose the next king, and your life depends on making the right choice. This brings us to a strange, almost pathetic, detail from the historical record of such times. The desperate search for signs and omens. In the final days of a dying ruler, the court becomes obsessed with superstition. An eclipse, a comet, the birth of a two-headed calf in a distant province, everything is interpreted as a sign of heaven's will. You, a man of immense practical power, find yourself consulting astrologers and soothsayers, looking for any hint of which way the divine winds are blowing. It is a measure of your desperation, a retreat into magic when logic and power are no longer enough. The exact moment of an emperor's death is a topic of intense historical interest, because it is a moment of supreme vulnerability for the state. Who controls the narrative of the emperor's last words? Who is in the room when he breathes his last? The dying testament of an emperor, in which he names his successor, could be a powerful tool. Historians still debate how many of these testaments were genuine and how many were forged or edited by a powerful figure like a senior eunuch who was present at the deathbed. Seeking to legitimize their chosen candidate, the emperor's condition worsens. He is confined to his bed. The government grinds to a halt. All of court life becomes a death watch. Your enemies, the scholar officials, are meeting in secret, preparing their lists of who is to be purged the moment the dragon falls. You can feel the web of power you who spent a lifetime building beginning to tremble. The threads are fraying. You redouble the guard around the palace. You restrict access to the emperor's chambers. You try to control everything, but you cannot control death. The beating heart of your world is growing faint, and you can hear the wolves gathering outside the door. The end comes, as it must. The final, rattling breath. The unnerving stillness in the grand imperial bed. For a few moments, the only sound in the room is the frantic pounding of your own heart. The emperor is dead. The sun has gone out. Your world is plunged into darkness. What happens next is a whirlwind of practiced, desperate action. This is the moment you have planned for, the contingency you have rehearsed in your mind 1,000 times. The first, most critical step is to control the news. The death must be kept secret for as long as possible. You seal the emperor's chambers, allowing only your most trusted lieutenants inside. You issue orders in the late emperor's name, sending potential rivals away from the capital on urgent missions. You are in a race against time, trying to secure the palace before the news breaks and chaos erupts. This brings us to the core, brutal reality of a power vacuum. The transfer of power is the most dangerous moment for any autocratic regime. It is when the state is at its weakest, when factions make their move, and when civil war can ignite. Your goal is not just to install your chosen successor. It is to do it so quickly and decisively that no one has time to challenge it. You are the stage manager of a political coup, masquerading as a smooth transition. You summon the prince you have backed to your chosen candidate. You bring him to his father's bedside and, in a solemn, private ceremony, you proclaim him the new emperor. You produce the imperial seal, the ultimate symbol of authority, which you, as the head of the palace, had in your safe keeping. You press it into his hand. You are the kingmaker. For a brief, dizzying moment, you are the most powerful man in the world, the pivot upon which the entire empire turns. But your power is fleeting. The new emperor, who was once so grateful for your support, now looks at you differently. He is the son of heaven now. He no longer needs you in the same way. And he is surrounded by people, his own advisors, his family, and especially your old enemies, the scholar officials who are all whispering in his ear, telling him that his first act must be to cleanse the court. To prove his own strength, he must cut down the man who was the symbol of his father's reign. He must cut you down. This leads to a tragically common and often swift historical pattern, the purge of the old guard. You become the perfect scapegoat. All the problems of the previous reign, the heavy taxes, the unpopular policies, the corruption can be blamed on you. By sacrificing you, the new emperor can present himself as a reformer, a clean slate, and win the goodwill of the people and the bureaucracy. Your loyalty, once your greatest asset, is now your greatest liability. A strange and chilling detail of this process is the suddenness of the fall. One day you are the de facto ruler of the empire. The next, you are a prisoner. An edict is issued, stripped of all the usual polite formalities. It lists your crimes in stark, brutal language. You are a traitor, a parasite, a villain who misled the noble, departed emperor. The language is likely written by your old enemies in the scholar official class, who savor every venomous word. Your network of spies and allies evaporates overnight. No one wants to be associated with a fallen star. Your friends are the first to denounce you, hoping to save their own skins. Historians often debate the motivations of the new emperor in these moments. Is it a cold, calculated act of political necessity, or is there a genuine, personal element to it, a young ruler's desire to escape the shadow of a powerful, father-like figure he both respected and resented? Perhaps it's a mixture of both, but the result for you is the same. You are arrested. Your fabulous wealth is confiscated, your properties seized by the state. Your adopted son is arrested with you, his future destroyed along with yours. You are stripped of your silk robes and your cap of office, and clad in the rough tunic of a condemned prisoner. It feels strangely familiar. You are brought before a tribunal, likely headed by your most bitter rivals. The trial is a sham, the verdict preordained. The sentence is death. The higher you climb, the further you have to fall, and your fall is from the very pinnacle of the world to the executioner's block. But let's imagine a different ending. Not every powerful eunuch met a bloody end. A few, a very lucky few, managed to do the impossible. They retired. Perhaps your chosen emperor was more loyal, or perhaps you were more cunning, able to skillfully fade into the background as the new regime took hold. Or maybe you simply saw the writing on the wall and orchestrated your own exit before the axe could fall. You announce your retirement, citing old age and ill health. The new emperor, perhaps relieved to be rid of you without the mess of a public execution, grants your request. He allows you to keep a portion of your wealth, not all of it, but enough. You are stripped of your official titles, but you are granted your life and a measure of freedom. You walk out of the palace gates for the last time, a free man in a way you haven't been since you were a small boy. The air of the outside world feels strange, thin, and unsettling like white. You retreat to the place you and your brothers in the Brotherhood prepared for this very day, the eunuch temple you helped fund on the outskirts of the capital. This is a historical reality. These temples, like the Fahai Temple in Beijing, served as retirement communities for the wealthy and powerful eunuchs who managed to survive the game. It is a beautiful, peaceful place, a complex of elegant halls, quiet courtyards, and beautiful gardens, all hidden behind a high wall. You are surrounded by your own kind, other old, retired eunuchs, the last survivors of a bygone era. Your days are now quiet and structured. You follow the gentle rhythm of monastic life. You wake, you chant scriptures, you tend to the gardens, you drink tea with your old comrades. You spend hours sitting in silent contemplation, looking at the gnarled branches of a pine tree or the carp swimming in a placid pond. It is the peaceful, dignified old age your father dreamed of for himself, the one he sacrificed you to obtain. But is it truly peaceful? The ghosts of your past are your constant companions. You sit in the quiet garden, but in your mind's eye, you see the face of the minister you had executed. You try to meditate, but your thoughts are interrupted by the memory of the emperor's dying breath. The skills you spent a lifetime honing, the ability to read people, to sense danger, to navigate intrigue, are now useless. They are like the muscles of a retired athlete, still strong but with no game to play. They twitch and ache with disuse. This brings us to a poignant and rarely considered aspect of a eunuch's life, the psychological weight of memory. You are a living archive of state secrets. You know where all the bodies are buried, both literally and figuratively. You know the true parentage of a certain prince, the real reason for a particular war, the secret frailties of men who are now revered as heroes. This knowledge is a heavy, dangerous burden. It isolates you even here. There are things you can never speak of, even to your oldest friends. The question of a eunuch's legacy is one that historians still ponder. If you left behind a vast fortune, did it bring you peace? If you funded the construction of this beautiful temple, did it cleanse the sins you committed to earn that money? You spend your days trying to secure a different kind of legacy now, the spiritual one. You make large donations to Buddhist monasteries and Taoist temples, hoping to earn merit for the next life. You commission the copying of sacred texts. It is an attempt to balance the karmic scales, to make amends for a life spent in the pursuit of a power that was ultimately transient. You look at your own body old, frail, and marked by the choices of your youth. You are a living testament to one of history's strangest bargains. You traded your future for your family's, your body for power. And now you have traded that power for a few quiet years in a beautiful garden. Was it worth it? As the sun sets over the temple walls, casting long shadows across the courtyard, you sit with that question. It is the one question you will never be able to answer. Strange journey is almost over, and all you have left are your memories and the sound of the wind in the pines. And so your story dissolves, like ink in water, into the vast, murky ocean of history. Whether you ended on an executioner's block or in a quiet temple garden, your individual life fades. What remains is the legacy of the eunuch as a figure, a legacy that is a tangled knot of contradictions. You are a footnote in the grand narrative of empires, but a footnote that reveals more than entire chapters. The role you played is a fundamental part of the historical record of civilizations from east to west. From the galley priests of ancient Rome to the powerful court eunuchs of the Byzantine and Ottoman empires, to your own experience in the heart of the Chinese imperial court, the pattern is strangely consistent. Wherever there was a secluded ruler and a protected harem, there was a need for a third gender, a class of men uniquely positioned to serve as the bridge between the inner sanctum and the outer world. You were a structural necessity of a certain kind of absolute monarchy. You are remembered, almost universally, as a villain. The histories, written by your enemies, the scholar officials, have seen to that. You are the symbol of corruption, of decadent, unnatural power. You are the scapegoat for the decline of dynasties. When an empire weakened, it was easy to point to the influence of the eunuchs as the cause, a convenient explanation that absolved emperors and the ruling class of their own failures. You became a cautionary tale, a boogeyman used to frighten future generations of rulers. But you were also undeniably a victim of crushing poverty that forced an impossible choice upon your family. A victim of a brutal, mutilating procedure that left you with a lifetime of physical pain and psychological trauma. You were a child sacrificed on the altar of imperial convenience and family desperation. The power you gained can never be fully separated from the suffering that was its prerequisite. This duality is what makes your story so compelling, and it's where historians continue to debate. How do we balance the scales? How much does your victimhood mitigate your later crimes? Can we condemn your corruption without acknowledging the system that created you? There are no easy answers. You were not a hero. You were not a hero. You were a simple villain. You were a survivor, and survivors in brutal systems often have to do brutal things. You were a product of a world that demanded an incredible, inhuman price for entry, and then gave you access to almost inhuman power. And here we find one last, strange, and often forgotten detail, your treasure. The bow, that small, preserved part of you that was taken on the first day. The historical record states that upon your death, it was meant to be placed in your coffin with you, so that you could be buried whole and, hopefully, be reborn as a complete man in the next life. It is a symbol of the profound psychological need to reclaim what was lost, a desperate, spiritual hope for wholeness after a life defined by its absence. It is the final, poignant act in your long, painful story, a desire to be made right in death. After a life of being fundamentally wrong in the eyes of the world, your story is a stark reminder that power is always bought at a price. For some, the price is gold or loyalty or years of hard work. For you, the price was your own flesh, your future, your identity. You walked the corridors of power as a ghost, a shadow, a being defined by an absence. And you showed the world that sometimes the most powerful people in the room are also the most broken. The great, heavy doors of the palace have swung shut. The sounds of the court, the whispers, the rustling silk, The distant gongs all begin to fade now. The story is over. The dust of centuries has settled over the carved dragons and the silent courtyards. Your journey from that cold, mud brick hut to the very center of the world is complete. The pain, the fear, the ambition, it all recedes, becoming soft and distant, like a landscape seen through a morning mist. You can feel the sharp edges of the day smoothing out, the worries of the world losing their grip. The path you walked was a difficult one, paved with sacrifice and shadow, but it has led you here, to this quiet moment of rest. Let the silence of the past be a gentle blanket. Let the weight of history become a soft pillow beneath your head. You are no longer in the palace. You are drifting now, on a calm and quiet river, moving gently toward the soft shores of sleep. There are no more choices to be made, no more dangers to navigate. There is only the gentle, rhythmic current carrying you forward, into the peaceful darkness of a deep and restful dream. The story has ended. Your night is just beginning.